My 5-year-old son came up to me with tears in his eyes. They were laughing at my stutter. I didn't say anything. I just took my son by the hand, went into the living room, and said something that made my sister turn pale and my mother fall silent. My 5-year-old son walked up to me, eyes wet, bottom lip shaking. They were all laughing at him and me. That was it. That was the moment. Not some explosive fight. Not a dramatic betrayal. Just that one broken sentence. And I knew immediately who they were. It wasn't strangers. It wasn't kids at school. It was them. My family. We were at my parents' house for dinner. Something I'd been guilt-tripped into again. My mother had called 3 times that week, going on about how Lucas barely knows his own family, how I was being unfair, how kids need to toughen up anyway. I said yes like I always did just to keep the peace. Big mistake. Lucas had been in the living room with Kayla, my younger sister, and our cousin Ben. I didn't hear what happened. I didn't have to. I'd seen the way Kayla joked about his speech before, mimicking him under her breath, laughing behind his back, saying things like, he's cute but he's gonna get eaten alive in school. And Ben, he just joined in like the little sidekick he's always been. So when Lucas came to me holding back tears, I didn't ask what they said. I didn't need details. I just stood up, took his hand, walked into the living room and said, "This was the last time you'll ever see my son." My mom was walking in behind us and stopped like she'd hit a wall. Kayla went pale instantly. Ben mumbled something, but I didn't even look at him. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't explain myself. Because the truth is, this moment had been building for years. Since the day Lucas turned 3 and started speech therapy, I've poured everything I had into helping him. Appointments, flashcards, hours of slow reading, patience even when it was hard. I followed every recommendation, every technique. The doctors all said the same thing. He's smart, he just needs time. Don't make him feel different. And I didn't. But my family did. Every visit turned into something between a roast and a lecture. Kayla would imitate him and laugh like it was a joke. My mom would act concerned, but it always came out condescending. Like, poor Lucas, was some project that would never quite succeed. And they always framed it like I was the problem. Like I was too soft. You baby him too much. He's going to grow up weak. You're raising a snowflake. Funny how they said all that with their hands out. Because I'm the one who's been covering my parents' mortgage for the last 2 years after Dad blew his savings on a failed investment. I'm the one who helped Kayla get into school, covered her tuition gaps, bought her books, even paid for her car insurance. They didn't call me soft then. They called me generous. They thought they could say what they wanted, do what they wanted, and I'd keep paying for it. But they crossed a line. After I made that announcement in the living room, I turned to my mother and added, "And starting next month, you'll need to figure out how to cover that mortgage yourselves." Then to Kayla, "You might want to look into community college, because I'm done funding your education while you mock my son behind my back." I didn't stay to hear the fallout. I just took Lucas, grabbed our coats and left. They didn't chase after us. I think part of them still thought I was bluffing, that I'd come crawling back once I cooled off. They had no idea, because this wasn't rage. This wasn't some dramatic storm of emotion. This was me finally waking up, and I wasn't just cutting them off. I was burning the bridge and never looking back. The drive home was quiet. Lucas sat in the back seat with his toy fox clutched tight, staring out the window. I asked if he wanted music and he just shook his head. I didn't push it. When we got home, I made him some warm milk, tucked him into bed and told him how proud I was of him. Not just for telling me what happened, but for being exactly who he is. He nodded, and before I left the room, he said, "I didn't want to go be back there." "You won't," I told him, and I meant it. That night, I opened my laptop and started the process I should have started a long time ago. I stopped the automatic payments on my parents' mortgage. I sent Kayla one final transfer, just enough to cover the rest of the month. Then I blocked their numbers. All of them. No texts. No calls. No back and forth. I was expecting the fallout to come the next morning, but it didn't. It came faster. Not 20 minutes later, my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. My mom. "What the hell, Lana? What did you do? You're being irrational. You're ruining this family over a joke. You'll regret this. Kayla's was worse. Are you serious right now? So I lose school because your kid can't take a joke? You're AF***ing psycho." I didn't reply to a single message. I just screenshotted every one and filed them away in a folder titled, Proof I Did the Right Thing. But then came the real hit, a call from my dad. I hadn't heard from him directly in months. He always let my mom handle the drama. When I didn't pick up, he left a voicemail. Just 4 words. You owe us everything. That stuck with me. Not we're sorry. Not we didn't mean it. Not how's Lucas. Just entitlement. Just the expectation that no matter what they did, I'd keep paying for it. I thought maybe after a few days of silence they'd cool down. Apologize. Pretend to reflect. Instead they escalated. Kayla posted some passive-aggressive crap on social media about bitter single moms who can't take a joke, and children who are doomed from being coddled. I didn't respond. Then my mother sent a group email to the entire extended family. A long, dramatic novella about how I was dismantling our family structure, how I turned Lucas against them, and how I was emotionally unstable ever since becoming a mother. She CC'd my aunts, my cousins, even my godmother. I sat at the kitchen table, reading it with a strange sense of calm. Lucas was at school. The house was quiet. And for the first time in years, I realized something. I wasn't scared of them anymore. They could spin whatever story they wanted. They could paint me as the villain. It didn't matter, because they had no power left. And that was only the beginning. By the end of that week, I could tell the silence on their end wasn't just pride. It was panic. I started getting texts from numbers I didn't recognize. My Aunt Denise, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Even Ben's mom, the same cousin who laughed along with Kayla. They were all saying versions of the same thing. Your mom's really stressed. Kayla didn't mean what she said. Don't punish the whole family for one moment. Not a single person asked how Lucas was. But then came the one message that actually made me pause, from the bank. A late notice. My name was still on the co-signed mortgage. I had stopped the automatic payments, but legally I was still tied to that house. I knew I'd have to deal with that mess eventually. I wasn't stupid. I had a plan. I'd been building it quietly ever since I got the feeling that someday I'd need a way out. I called the bank. Started the process of removing myself. It took weeks. Endless paperwork. Proof of payments. Account history. But I did it. And when the process was finally complete, I sent my mother the confirmation. Just one line. You're on your own now. 3 days later, Kayla showed up at my job. She actually stood at the front desk like nothing had happened, pretending she just wanted to talk. I asked my coworker to call security. Before they came, Kayla said, "You ruined my life over a stutter." And that was the moment I knew she still didn't get it. He thought this was about one joke, one night, one dinner. She didn't understand that this was years in the making. That I'd spent years taking their crap in exchange for some twisted version of peace. And I was finally done trading my son's dignity for their approval. When security walked her out, she said something loud enough for everyone to hear. You think you're better than us now? You think he's not gonna grow up hating you for this? I didn't even blink. Because by then I'd started seeing changes in Lucas. Real ones. He spoke more confidently. Not perfect, but better. His therapist said he was making progress faster than expected. He was smiling more, sleeping better. He even started asking questions, real, thoughtful ones, like he was no longer afraid to speak. We read together every night. He liked the funny books, the ones with silly voices and animal noises. I'd slow down when he needed me to, wait for him to finish his words. And one night, after we finished a story, he looked at me and said, clear as day, I love you, Not a single tear in his eyes. Just a little boy proud of himself. I kissed his forehead and told him I loved him more. And in that moment I realized something else. I hadn't just protected him from them. I protected myself too. But while our lives were starting to settle, theirs were just beginning to fall apart. It started with the house. 3 months after I pulled the payments, the foreclosure notice went up. Big, bold letters on the front door of my parents' perfect little suburban home. The one they bragged about at every family gathering like it was some kind of trophy. Neighbors started whispering. Aunt Denise posted a vague, prayers needed for family going through hard times on Facebook. And then the calls started again. First from my dad, then my mom, then both at once. I didn't pick up. Lucas and I were at the zoo the day they lost the house. I took pictures of him feeding giraffes and laughing at a goat that tried to steal his snack. We got ice cream afterward and he said it was the best D-Day ever. Meanwhile, Kayla had dropped out of college. Turns out, without my help, she couldn't afford tuition, rent, or her car. Her posts went from latte selfies and campus parties to vague tweets about betrayal and fake people who act like family. Then one night, I remember it clearly because Lucas had just fallen asleep after trying to read a bedtime story on his own. I checked my email and saw a message from Kayla. Subject: please read. I hovered over it for a while. Thought about deleting it, but curiosity won. It was long. Pages of excuses, half apologies, and guilt-tripping. She talked about how things just got out of hand, how she was under pressure, how she didn't mean it like that. Then she got to the real reason she was writing. She needed money. Her student loans were hitting. She couldn't pay rent. She might lose her apartment. She ended the email with, "Lucas won't even remember this when he's older. But I'll remember that my sister turned her back on me when I needed her most." I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded the email to myself, put it in the same folder as the others, and closed my laptop. They still thought I would break, that I'd cave, that some part of me still believed in keeping the peace, in being the fixer, in holding everything together while they tore it apart. But that version of me was gone. Lucas was growing. His words came smoother. His sentences were fuller. He laughed louder. He was learning that the world could be kind, and more importantly, that he never had to beg for respect in his own home. And for the first time in years, I was breathing like I'd come up from underwater. My family, they were learning what it felt like to live without me. And it was only going to get worse for them. By the time winter came around, they'd stopped pretending. No more guilt trips. No more emotional manipulation. No more pretending they wanted the family back together. Now it was pure desperation. One night, around 11, I got a knock at the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked through the peephole. It was my mother. I didn't open it. She stood there with a scarf wrapped tight around her neck, a grocery bag in one hand, like she thought this was some casual visit. After a minute, she knocked again, then called through the door. "Lana, it's freezing out here. I just want to talk." Lucas was asleep. I turned off the porch light and walked away. She waited 15 minutes, then left. The next morning, I found the bag still sitting outside. Inside was a stack of old photos. Me as a kid, her holding Lucas as a baby, a note scribbled on yellow-lined paper. "Family is family. No matter what's happened, please come home." I stood there in the doorway holding that note, and for the first time in months I felt nothing. Not anger. Not sadness. Not guilt. Just nothing. This home. That wasn't their house. It never had been. It was this apartment with the dinosaur stickers on the fridge and the toy fox that traveled from room to room. It was Lucas pronouncing words he used to stumble over. It was peace. A week later, I got a call from Kayla's number. I ignored it as always, but this time she left a voicemail. Her voice sounded different. Not angry, just worn down. She said she was staying with a friend. She didn't have a car anymore. She said something about needing to reapply for school, but that she had no clue how. Then she said something that almost made me laugh. "You don't have to talk to me. I get it. Just please talk to Mom. She's not doing great." I didn't call back, because all those years I was too sensitive. This was what that sensitivity built. A boy who felt safe. A boy who smiled more now than he ever had in their house. And all those years they said I was spoiling them by depending on me. They were right. I had spoiled them by absorbing the damage, by shielding them from consequences. Now they were finally living in the wreckage they created, and I wasn't going to save them from it. Spring came early that year. Lucas was outside on the patio, sitting on a little blue stool with chalk in his hand, drawing something on the bricks. I watched him from the kitchen window while stirring pasta on the stove. He was humming, actually humming, something he'd never done much before. His speech therapist had just emailed me that week to say his progress had officially moved into the mild category. He was ahead of schedule. She said, "He's relaxed. He's confident. You've done the right thing." And I realized that was the first time in years I didn't feel like I had to question myself. A few weeks later, the final email came. It was from my dad. A single sentence. "We lost the house." That was it. No request. No apology. No attempt to reconnect. Just the blunt fact, like he couldn't bear to say more. I sat with it for a minute, just looking at the words. The same man who told me I owed them everything was now announcing in silence that it was all gone. I thought I'd feel something when it happened. Closure. Victory. Maybe guilt. But no. It was just done. Kayla ended up taking some job out of state. I don't know where. She stopped posting on social media. My mom moved in with one of her sisters. Someone she used to talk trash about constantly. The silence stretched longer. Then it stuck. Lucas started kindergarten that fall. On his first day, he stood in front of the mirror, backpack already on, and said, "I'm gonna make us so many F friends." Then he looked at me and smiled. I didn't care if they all laugh. He said it without sadness, without fear, just like it was a fact, and he wasn't afraid of it anymore. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat on the couch alone and let it all hit me. The years I spent twisting myself into knots trying to please people who wouldn't lift a finger for me. The apologies I made for them. The ones I made to them. The way they chipped away at me, piece by piece, until I believed I was lucky just to be tolerated. And all it took to tear it down was one quiet sentence from a 5-year-old boy with tears in his eyes. They laughed at him. Now they had nothing. And we had everything we needed. We had peace. We had each other. We were free.